Welcome to MovieFlex Double Features, the podcast who believes the only thing more important than an auteur is leg day. I'm one of your hosts, Estebs. Here as always with your other host, Matt, aka the Posting Pro. Matt, how are you doing?
Yo, I'm doing good. Had leg day yesterday, so just recovering from that. But how are you guys?
Great. We're great. I have to mention, guys, I'm super
Would you like to name
excited.
yet?
Yeah. Oh, I'll introduce you, brother. I'm introducing you because I have to, because he's awesome. We have another guest this week from the group chat. It's our friend at Uzumaki, aka Travis. Travis, how you doing?
Doing good. Here in Colorado, we just had some snow this weekend, a week before June, so stoked about that.
Oh, sick. Yeah,
Nice.
that's like biblical.
It was like 90 degrees, and then the next day we got like 6 inches of snow, so it was pretty tight.
Hell yeah.
I just watched like a Japanese horror movie where where they talk about it's like winter in May, it's snowing in May, and that's like supposed to be like a like an
Sign of the
apocalyptic fucked up
apocalypse,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
But
one of those
yes,
things where we have fires in Colorado all winter, like half of the surrounding areas get burned down, and then all of a sudden it's snowing during the middle of summer.
yeah, it's like it's perfect. That's totally normal. That's how like the Earth has always been. Uh, it's
Yeah,
just
doing
that's
great.
just normal. Yeah. Um, well, I'm super excited this week. We have a pair of movies from Matt. I've been racking my brain thinking of like the hidden connection. We will get to it. We're gonna get to baseball. First, though, up front, I like to riff a little. And this week, I wanted to talk about theatrical comedies. And I wanted to ask you guys about some of your favorite moments watching comedies in theaters. Just because, like, I was talking to it with it about Matt off pod, and it's not like a mystery as to why they don't make these movies anymore. Like, there's a book called The Big Picture by Ben Fritz, which we'll get into. But basically, he explains that, in the 2000s, studios were making a lot of money from physical media, and they were basically taking that money and using it to fund like all of these like middle budget, more adult themed fare, right? So like your Michael Claytons, your comedies, whatever. So that dries up, and at the same time, the international box office like overtakes the domestic box office in terms of revenue. So studios are thinking more about like the international consumer and less about the American film goer, right? And of course, historically, comedies haven't exported well because they're so specific to the culture they're from. So it's easy to see like how they just don't get made anymore. That's why everything's like actiony and IP basically, because that stuff translates well. And it made me really mad because it made me realize that like I was missing something that I didn't realize I was missing, which was like seeing comedies in theaters with a big group of people, like opening night. I have all these memories of seeing like countless movies. Like Jackass was a big one. All those like original movies. Borat's a really good one because I remember like seeing the original with my brothers, thinking it was really funny, and then when the new one came out, not only is it not as good, but like I was watching it alone on my couch. Like it just was really shitty. So to make myself feel better, I just started thinking of like all the good times I've had laughing in theaters. And one like probably my like fondest memory is I was going to college in Austin, and back in the 2000s, and like Observe and Report had its premiere at South by, and I was able to go somehow. I don't remember, but like the cast was there, and like Seth Rogen was sitting right behind me, and like I was like listening to him laugh at himself the whole movie, and it was like this insane surreal experience. It was really fun. I got to hang out with Danny McBride after, and yeah, like I said, I just really miss those like moments. I miss those like that was a big reason why I went to the theater, was just to like hang out and laugh. So yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, what are some of your favorite theater moments when it comes to seeing comedies, funny movies, or movies that aren't funny but like they were funny to you?
Mm. Yeah, I just when you asked me that this morning, I was the first thing that came to my mind. I think just having seen Everything Everywhere, it I was thinking about it recently, but I remember in high school when Swiss Army Man came out, and I'd not heard anything about it, and so my friend
Hmm.
picked me up. He said, "Hey, you're gonna come with me to see this movie." He's like, "Don't look up anything about it. Don't watch the trailer, nothing." So I went totally blind into that movie, and I remember the first scene of Paul Dano riding Daniel Radcliffe like a jet ski.
Oh
I mean, it
yeah.
was one of my favorite movie theater just shocks of all time.
Yeah, I very I still never got around to seeing it, but I like yeah, I saw that director like defending his movie and he was like, "Hey, if you guys weren't here for us back then, you're not real fans." And I was like, "Man, shit. I that sucks. I guess I'm not a
Yeah,
real fan."
I never saw it either. You know, when everyone was like, "You need to see this everything everywhere all at once," it's like the best movie ever, and then like film Twitter, you know, quote unquote, like just hated it. I was like, all right, let's see it, and then I watched it and absolutely loved it. So it's like maybe I should go back and watch the Swiss Army Man.
Yeah, we
Swiss Army
talked about
Man's
that.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that too about like disagreeing largely with film Twitter a lot, like and being like, well, if they like something, maybe I'm not going to see it because I don't agree with them a lot, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, but for comedies though, for me, um, so of course recency bias plays into it, but I saw at a pretty late screening, I saw Jackass Forever,
Mm,
and I had never seen anything like I've seen clips from Jackass on like scrolling the TV or something, you know,
yeah.
but I'd never watched like a full clip of Jackass. I never watched Jackass on TV, never watched it on YouTube, never watched any of the movies. Um, and so people were like, "You need to go see this Jackass Forever. It's great." I watched it, and that's like the hardest I've laughed in like a movie in a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's still some. Thank goodness, there's still some comedies being made. Um, but uh, the only other thing that I can think of off the top of my head that was like a theatrical comedy that I went to go see that I was like really enjoyed the experience of was the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. I saw that like
Mm,
that
Mm.
was one of the ones because Steven, you always talk about how you see movies when you're way too young, you know, not
yeah.
way too young, but like movies that shouldn't be seen at those ages.
Yeah.
And I saw that in like beginning of middle school, I believe. My sister took me to a theater. It
Mm.
was like a art house theater, which is kind of weird that it was playing Aqua Teen, but it was the only theater around. We walked in and we were so excited. Like we, you know, she had showed us the show. We were too young for the show, and she was like, "Let's watch
Mm.
this." And I was telling you as well that you posted a picture a while back of the old like the "Let's all go to the movies,"
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
concession singing, and I just remembered the uh, like the junk food, like the fucked up looking like green burger or whatever, being like, "We already have your fucking money," like screaming and like, yeah, it was a great experience. But like to kind of talk about that topic, you know, you and I talked about it last night. There was a lot of reasons why, because Hollywood takes the wrong lessons, you know, from
Mm.
everything, and one of the reasons why um, comedies aren't made as much is because they just made this like huge influx of like really bad ones really quickly. And I think, you know, there was like a solid 3 months or 4 months where I was constantly going to the movies and seeing like Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, like
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson comedies that were coming out, and like none of them were good. They were all poorly reviewed. Like no one really went to go see them, so they're kind of all flops. And they just kept making these movies for some reason. And then you know, Hollywood was like, "Well, I guess all no one likes comedies anymore." It's like, well, calm down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think you know, they studios would hope that comedies would go the way of horror, where you can make them cheaply and with low effort, and they'll still make big bucks at the box office. But that's not true, and you actually, you know, you can make a comedy on a small budget, but you actually do need to write a good comedy, and you
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't just crank one out, you know. And if you're going to pump a ton of time and money into a movie as a studio, why not go for the big box office stuff like action?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, you know, comedies don't translate well. I'm sure, like you guys have like tried to watch like a French comedy or something. Like the only exception is like physical comedy that always translates really well. That's why Chaplin was like, you know, a megastar. like that does well, Three Stooges and stuff. But like I said, the only equivalent to that is Jackass. And like, yeah, we got the Jackass movie this year, but it was like the first one in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
remember back in the day, like seeing Step Brothers in theaters. I remember like seeing Superbad, and like it's kind of like, because you have to imagine a world where like nobody knows what McLovin is, right? Like you've
Yeah.
never heard of it, you get knocked on the head, and so
Whoa.
you're like in a room full of people, and then like this guy's just like McLovin. Like it's so hard to describe how funny that was. Like on a Friday night to the biggest theater possible, and it's so funny because like there's the scene at the end where like Evan Michael Cera, like he like turns the girl down and she like throws up on him. Like as soon as that scene happened, the fire alarm went off in the theater. So like all the lights came on and everyone had to like exit, but no one wanted to because like we wanted to watch the movie and it was almost over. But they made us leave and we all got free tickets. So like I immediately came back the next day and saw it because I was like, I don't like watching movies multiple times in theaters generally, but with comedies I was like, yeah, it's fun. It's like I said, you have to like imagine a world where no one's seen that movie. It's the same thing with Borat.
You know what? Also, I think what also killed comedy, kind of like as a genre itself in theaters, like the theatrically released comedies, was it wasn't just like it was kind of like that the ones I was telling you about were kind of the final nail in the coffin. But I think it started to go downhill with when they started making all those parody films, where it was just like superhero movie and so like Scary Movie was great, right? Like Scary Movie
Yeah,
1
the
and 2,
first
I
two are
still
really good.
yeah, I still kind of like
Epic
hold on to
movie and
the. But then
Meet
they're
the
like, let's make
Spartan.
epic movie. They made like superhero movie. They made like all these parody films that were really bad. Like they weren't funny. They weren't trying to be funny. And those things kind of like would come out in theaters and people didn't like them and they were like, okay. And then again, Hollywood was kind of like, I guess people hate comedies instead of taking
Yeah.
no, maybe people hate these parody movies that are not well thought out and put together on a shoestring budget.
Okay,
There we go.
let's go. All right. Sorry, technical difficulties. We use Craigbot. Craigbot, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find what cave you live in. I'm gonna hunt you down in the depths of the freaking Yukon, motherfucker. I hate you, you stupid grizzly.
I can't let you do that, Steven.
Yeah,
Doing a Butlerian jihad, but just for Craig.
yeah, exactly, right? Dude. Okay, Craig, you little fucker. Don't fuck up. Okay, so with that said, let's dive into this week's movies.
Let's talk movies.
Okay, so all right, this week's movies: Field of Dreams, Bull Durham. Matt, if you want to intro these movies a little bit, and then Trav, we can get your thoughts on Field of Dreams, 1989, directed by Phil Alden Robinson. The other big thing he does is The Sum of All Fears with Affleck as Jack Ryan. His first screenplay was Rhinestone with Stallone and Dolly Parton, which is an amazing movie. Yeah, Matt, intro us.
Okay, so since we already blew the big reveal of why I chose these two movies on the failed recording, I'll just go ahead and say, so both baseball movies, both Kevin Costner films. I said specifically, you guys need to watch Field of Dreams and then Bull Durham. And the themes, the first two themes, like I said, baseball, Kevin Costner. The third theme is spirituality in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
That goes across both of them, but Field of Dreams is more of a inherently spiritual film, whereas Bull Durham is a more sobering look at the harsh realities of baseball, specifically the minor league system. It's Bull Durham's a funny film, right? It's a good, they're both good movies, but like I said, Field of Dreams is a more ethereal, more spiritual look at in baseball, and Bull Durham has that at the beginning, but then there's this sobering reality towards the end that you kind of realize like baseball's a business, and not everyone's got love of the sport who plays it, but like at the same time, not everyone can make it. And Field of Dreams has some of that too, but it's more of a redemption of people who can't make it. you know.
It's more like idealism versus disillusionment, or like practicality. The harsh
Yeah,
realities versus the dream. Because I know that's also like a criticism of this movie is that it kind of overlooks some of the harsher realities of baseball. I don't know. I just saw that in one of the reviews. I didn't. I thought it was bullshit, so I didn't read the whole thing. But yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there's stuff that you could say about it.
yeah.
I think a big
So, oh, go ahead, Travis.
I think a big difference between the two films on that level is, in Field of Dreams, we'll talk more specifically about it, but Archie Graham finally has that redemptive chance to play with the big leaguers, to play with Shoeless Joe, whereas
Hmm.
in Bull Durham, Crash Davis never gets that chance. Even
Mm.
through all the spirituality and the love of the game, he never gets redeemed.
Yeah, he doesn't make it in the show, right? Like that's a big thing. He
Yeah.
always talks about the show. He's like, you may be hot shit meat, but you're not, you're not hot shit in the show. They're gonna like tee off of you, basically, is what he tells
Yeah,
the up and coming pitcher. But yeah, Field of Dreams. We're gonna start with that one. Like I said, the more um, spiritually enriching
Yeah.
one. It's a 5 for me. I picked this movie. It's a deeply personal movie. I said earlier that I think it's if you were to consider like the great American novel, right, as a concept, if you were to like think of the great American movie, I believe this is one of the great American movies. It's completely Americana. It's about our history and baseball as a piece of our history, how things change, America changes. It has to reconcile with the past a lot of times, but baseball is a constant. There's a lot of people who play baseball, who love baseball, who have this childlike wonderment with regards to baseball, and that's a big theme as well. Because I mean, this movie does also deal with a lot of like failed things,
Yeah.
um, like the 60s, right? Like fighting for civil rights and for
Yeah.
trying to make things more economical for everybody. And it has to do with a lot of the disillusionment of, um, that
yeah, it
generation.
deals with the sort of emotional fallout that, I'm speaking way out of my age league, but the sort of emotional fallout that came with Reagan in the 80s of, the times of being a hippy dippy and peace love, read Terrence Mann. Those are gone, and they have to buy a farm, and all of a sudden the bank is breathing down their necks. And this movie's about a way to believe in something that transcends the sort of neoliberal, quote unquote, future that was awaiting the Kinsellas.
Yeah, I mentioned that, when I was trying to like connect this movie with Bull Durham, both have very, like you said, very like clear like themes of faith. Like Bull Durham opens with a soliloquy from, Susan Sarandon, like, literally talking about baseball as a religion. This has very more like traditional Christian thematic religious themes. But tied in with like baseball again, very American, very like Christian, like just humble pie, like or apple pie, just like classic Kevin Costner. It's Kevin Costner. Like I said, I really love this movie. I have to be honest, I avoided it because on the one hand, it is one of those movies that has been parodied, that has been satirized, referenced a lot, spoofed. At the same time, like, I didn't know my father. I basically didn't have one. Still don't, and just so I avoided it because I knew it was a very like dad movie, and or at least I thought so. And then when I watched it, like I said, he talks about it's not so. I mean, it is very much a dad movie. It is like dealing with his father's issues, but which I have, so I can relate on that level. But at the same time, he was just very close to his dad, and as someone who's very close to my mom, I get what that's like when you're like, I only have one parent, so they're like my whole life,
Mm.
and that happens like a couple of minutes into the movie, and this movie got me really emotional. I'm not gonna lie, it fucked me up. I was crying a lot toward the end. Um, and I do have some theories. I do have some pet theories. My like tongue in cheek theory is that the voice that speaks to him sounds exactly like the devil in The Last Temptation of Christ, and Black Phillip in The Witch. But my more serious theory is that everyone in this movie's dead, right? Because there's a part at the end where Ray Liotta's character, or Shoeless Joe Jackson, tells Kevin Costner, like, heaven is a place where dreams come true. And they very deliberately cut to a shot of Kevin Costner looking at his family. And so you're like, okay, well, if his dream, as it's implied, is to have a family that he loves, which he has, then ergo, he's dead, right? Because this is heaven. And Matt, I know you have you've heard something similar, right?
Yeah, like I said earlier, so I watched this movie as a kid a lot. I saw it a couple times, and then in my adult life, I revisited it as part of a film class, and the theme of the film class was Great American Road movies. So it was about movies. So what's funny is I didn't say this, but The Straight Story was the next to last one that we watched. As part of that class, we did watch was it Blacktop? What's that movie called? It's something Blacktop. It's the car movie. It's the old 70s car movie. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so Field of Dreams was one of them, and I was excited because I'm, big baseball guy. It's my favorite sport. I'm like, hell yeah, it's a spiritual movie about a sport that I really do take to be kind of like a spiritual experience. Like I said, every time I go to a baseball game, it's like being in church. I kind of equate those two. And even before I had seen this movie, but yeah, so I that my class, my professor was a film critic back in the day. He was a freelance film critic. No one would know him. He's just kind of like, he wrote for like more local newspapers, but he's a Catholic, right? He's a practicing Catholic. And his theory, which I think I agree with, is that this movie is, which is weird because, Catholicism isn't really like, it's not, you wouldn't think like, oh, Americana, like Catholicism, right? You kind of think Protestantism, but he thought that it's Catholic in that, yes, everyone's dead. They're all in purgatory, right? And when the voice, which is God, tells,
or the devil. Sometimes the devil appears to you as God.
Yeah. So when God tells Ray Kinsella
God
to build the field, it's because he's got a lot of, because you kind of said it that he's was really close to his dad, but he goes away from his father, right? He's really mad at him because he says that he was old before I was born, right? And like I said, as a person, like I don't know if you guys have older parents or not, but I was definitely like, like my dad was like 46 when he had me, and my mom was 44. So yeah, as a person with older parents, I can definitely relate to kind of like an anger, right, of like having, being old when you're born, right, essentially. And so he's got a lot of pent up anger, and he kind of he tells him something horrible, leaves, kind of whatever, and so the entire movie is like him trying to reconcile that horrible thing he said to him, right? Like he wants to take it back.
And what did he tell him? He told him Bernie would have won. Wow.
Exactly.
Nice. He said the American people are tired of women.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
but no,
isn't what he tells his dad is I could never respect someone whose hero is Joe Jackson or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said I can never respect someone whose hero is a criminal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so he thinks he's building the field for Shoeless Joe, played by Ray Liotta, but he's actually building it for his father so he can play catch with him one more time. And, he's going through this penance, right? That's like kind of a central theme. He's got to do all of this stuff to kind of reconcile and kind of move on. And so, yeah, I agree with that reading. I think they're all dead. But Travis, what did you ultimately think of the movie? 5 stars for me. Steven, you said 4. Yeah, Travis, how many stars? What'd you think of
I
it?
think I think I on Letterboxd I gave it a 3.5, just in terms of
Mm.
Ooh,
the
be
technical
still.
aspects of the movie. But I did give it the rare heart on Letterboxd. I did love the movie. I had a great time watching it.
Mm.
Um, I said before, and it was in my notes, this movie really felt like Christmas to me. I loved just the sort of incessant belief and faith that Ray Kinsella has the whole time. I found it very assuring.
Mhm.
Yeah,
There's that aspect of, there's no second guessing at all by Ray. He sees the burning bush, the voice talks to him, and he doesn't turn back. They levy the risk of the bank taking the farm and destroying the field, but it never really feels like a conflict. Ray's never going to concede and even play on the same level as the bank or
he has
the
a
stepbrother character.
he has a
He
personal
he doesn't
conflict
even.
towards the end there.
Yeah, he does. He does. I
Yeah.
but
No.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go on.
No, you can go. You're the guest, brother.
I found the movie to be very very positive and uplifting, and a feel good
Mm.
movie that most movies that are called feel good movies don't actually make me feel that good, but this one
Yeah.
very much did.
Yeah. I think it does a couple of really smart. Like I don't really get into technical screenwriting stuff, but a couple of things it does. Like I said, at first, at first glance, you can say, okay, Ray Kinsella, he's like, middle class white guy, family, farm, boomer, like perfect timing to be an American as far as like making money goes. Like, but very early on, it's like, oh no, but he's also a guy who hears voices. And then I felt like that brought the character more down to my level. And then I like all of a sudden, like I said, this movie, I had so many preconceived notions that were shattered when I actually watched it. And another really good technical thing it does is that the inciting incident is tied directly to his flaw, right? Like
Hmm.
hearing if you build it, he will come. Like it, because his flaw, is like that he carries this like hatred of his father,
Yeah, he's a burden.
and yeah, and he never let it go, and he never like reconciled with his father, and something's haunting him, and then he starts literally hearing a ghost,
Yeah.
um and that's a really good thing. I wanted to shout out some of the cast.
Wait. Well, I just want to go right off of him hearing voices,
Mm,
which one of my favorite scenes in the movie is right at the beginning. He hears the voice of God or the devil, God,
yeah,
and he
it's
goes straight to
ambiguous.
the farmer store to buy farmer stuff, and he walks around going, "Yeah, so farmers hear things out in their fields, right? Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
are you guys are crazy, you know." Oh, not me. I haven't heard anything, but I've heard you guys all hear things, right? He immediately
yeah,
goes and like tries to make up this myth that farmers hear things in
yeah. He's like,
fields.
that's a thing we do, right? We just hear random shit. We're all fucked up, right?
We farmers, right? They're all like 80 years old, like them
He's like
all.
this nondescript farmer store in a barn. I
They're
loved it.
all like, he's like, we're all farmers, right? And they're all secretly racist against him because he's
Yeah.
Irish. Like, just the oldest fucking people. I
You
wanted to
have to
quickly shout out. Where you go ahead?
you have to realize too, like in the movie, which we didn't really talk about, is that he's very reluctant. He's a very reluctant farmer. He doesn't necessarily want to do this. It's kind of so everything in his life kind of passes him by, right? Like he says he gets married to his wife because she was from Iowa. The only thing they had in common was she was from Iowa and he had heard of Iowa,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then she's the one that proposes them selling everything and buying the farm. So he's very reluctant in that regard, and his fear, his like the conflict within him at the very beginning is that he doesn't want to be like his dad. He's really afraid of becoming his father and growing too old and never doing
Well,
anything too crazy.
I would say
Mhm.
he's like scared of becoming old, right? Because like, yeah, he's mad at his dad. Like you said, he's said he's mad at his dad for being old. And so really what's at the heart of that is like I don't think like again, we find out at the end he's not really mad at his dad so much as I think this is like a subtextual thing is that like he's like I said it's all about the fear of death, right? because I think like seeing his older father made him conscious of that maybe at too young of an age.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, that's speaking from a place like it's a very so this movie, is obviously a 5 for me, like I said, but it's a 5 for me definitely because it's a very personal movie,
Mhm.
right? Speaking from a person who had a troubled relationship with his father and who has older parents, right? There is a very prominent thing in your mind, always in the back of your mind, that death is very close, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you're too aware of death at too early of an age because
Hmm.
with old age typically brings sickness, and with sickness typically brings death. So you're always constantly aware of death, even when you're too young to understand what death is. So
Mm.
Yeah,
no, I agree, Steven.
cool. I just want to say real quick, Burt Lancaster. I forgot. Like the whole road trip part was the part that I don't remember watching as a kid. So seeing Burt Lancaster and James Earl Jones was like a real treat. I was like, oh yeah, these. I mean, Burt Lancaster is fucking amazing in this movie. It's like
Yeah,
it's
he's awesome.
underrated, but it's one of like the most like I don't think he even got nominated for the Oscar, but it's one of the like most effective. God, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like it's an amazing performance. Also, the daughter played by Gabby Hoffman, who she was like a big child star, and then she took a bunch of years off to like learn how to be a person, and then she came back recently. She played the sister, Phoenix's sister, in a Come On last year, which I fucking love that movie. She's also in the HBO Lakers show. She's fucking
Oh, is
killing
she?
it in that. Yeah, yeah. She plays like an exec or someone who works for Jerry Buss. Yeah. So big shout out to the cast, Timothy Busfield. Of course, Ray Liotta. Like, I love, like, my favorite Ray Liotta moment is when he's like, we told Ty Cobb to fuck himself, like, and he does like his laugh. And I should say
Yeah.
Ty Cobb, famous for beating the shit out of a fan with no hands. But also was the victim himself of racism because I think he was of mixed ethnicity.
So funny, lesser known movie that was a spin-off of this, starring, it's about Ty Cobb, and it's called Field of Nightmares, where Ty Cobb is called to a field.
Yeah, it's like he's like it's like Saw-esque. He's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
fuck you up. Yeah, he's like, yeah. Oh, I also want to. Yeah, I'm gonna make that movie, and I'm gonna
He
call it
has to, he has
the
to,
reluctant protagonist.
he has to fight an entire army of armless guys.
Yeah, armless zombies.
Yeah, that's his penance, and it is Black Phillip. It is the devil's voice, and he's
Yeah,
like, "What's now like to live deliciously?"
Yeah, you gotta admit, bro, it's pretty close. Like it's in the same, dare I say, ballpark. Funny thing
Oh,
about
that
Steelers,
first
okay,
that first
Travis,
appearance of yeah.
you were talking earlier about writing notes. I have one note for Field of Dreams because I've seen it a billion times. But my note is 2 dogs and 2 beers cost $10. The most fantastical element in this movie.
Okay,
At the
insane.
yeah. Wait, I wrote $10 for 2 dogs and 2 beers at Fenway. God damn.
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you guys know that the Terrence Mann character is based on J.D. Salinger?
No, I was trying to figure out who it was that they
Yeah.
were. Okay,
I,
that makes sense.
I had heard that. I don't remember where I heard that, but it was like in the back of my mind. But no, I didn't like actively know that.
Yeah,
That's
because
interesting.
I was really curious automatically, and I was like, who is this Terrence Mann figure? Because like I'm a Philistine who hasn't read enough books, and of course I find out he's fictitious. But yeah, he was based on J.D. Salinger, who
Catcher in the
Um,
Rye, famously banned book.
yeah, Catcher in the Rye, a great book read by some of the coolest people. A guy I follow on Twitter, his name's John Hinckley. He's a musician. You guys should check him out.
bro, the this a little
He's
off
got some
topic,
good
but the
movies.
Jodie Foster when she was like, I thought it was kind of flattering. I'm like, God, I
Yeah,
love her so much.
dude, I was cheering. Yeah, I was like, hell yeah, dude.
Shoot your shot, King. Quite literally. Oh,
um,
dude. Yeah.
I thought the banned book scene was very 2022, like calling her a Nazi and shit. I'm like, oh, she is a lib because she's calling everyone a fucking Nazi.
Well, yeah, and then she kind of like talks about another reason why I was saying like, oh yeah, it's pretty Americana. She's like, don't you guys believe in freedom? She's kind of like talking about freedom and the
Yeah.
Constitution and
Yeah,
all
you
this
don't want to
stuff
burn
because like
books. You don't want to be a red.
because there is an element, I think, of like what America should be, right? Like the
Yeah.
ideal, like the fake idealized version of America. And she kind of like, even though she's kind of lib in that moment, she's very much right. It's like,
Oh
well,
yeah, yeah.
if we are a purportedly free country, we should be able to have like opposing viewpoints, right?
Yeah, I just didn't like all the shots at communism this movie took. I thought that was very
Yeah.
tasteless. I was like,
Yeah,
come
she's
on,
like,
man.
well,
But like,
she is shouting at the person who would talk about Stalin.
but
Like she's speaking in terms that woman would understand.
Yeah, she's playing her
yeah,
cards.
I guess, but she also, I mean, it makes that like perfectly explains the lib mindset, right? Where it's like, I hate Nazis and I hate communists. It's like, all right, so who would you have played for in World War II? Switzerland. Like, oh man, woo. Okay, but no, this isn't a politics thing. We're not. But actually, there is like a politics tie to the next movie because Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins, like classic, Hollywood leftist, Bernie Bros.
Oh,
Like,
is Tim Robbins too?
well, I know Sarandon is, so he must be,
Yeah,
right?
Sarandon's obviously.
So yeah, like they're based, and I thought, okay, like the couple in this, it's like they're kind of based, like,
They're as based as people from Iowa and that time
yeah,
period could be. They're
exactly.
they're leftists in the terms of like the '60s leftists, right, where they believe in free love and everything, but they're like, well, but like
Yeah,
also let's calm down, peace.
but
It's
but
like,
I
all
do
right,
think the political aspect of this movie is very interesting.
yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's like this is what America should be. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh,
think they're like talking about kind of like the
yeah.
idealized America, at
I
least.
I want to get both of you guys' opinion on this. So in the movie, during the PTA scene, she yells at the Nazi. She goes, "You're from the or no, the Nazi yells at her, "You're from the '60s" or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the modern day equivalent, like if that movie was set today, the equivalent would be, "You're from the 2000s."
Yeah,
That's kind of crazy to me because it seems like it would be very
basically.
bad.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah,
Yeah.
final. I guess we should wrap this one up, right? Field of Dreams.
Um, yeah. I have a couple of more thoughts. Like I said, this is another movie where a man is gaslit. You love to see it. My only thing, like my big criticism was that I thought it was a wee bit like maudlin, sentimental at times, like, but it also made me cry whenever he goes, whenever like the doc is like the old version of the doctor is like going into the corn, and he's like, "Hey rookie," like, oh man, calling him a rookie like that, I was like bawling my eyes out. It made me pretty emotional. But yeah, those are all my notes.
The one thing I thought was really interesting is there's a genre shift for about 5 seconds in the movie, and it's when Ray is leaving Terrence Mann's apartment. He hasn't gotten him to come on this trip. He's gonna go back and find Archibald Graham. And there's a jump scare that I jumped a foot out of my seat where he's pulling the van out and Terrence Mann is standing in the middle of the street
Yeah,
staring into
yeah,
his eyes. I mean, it's
yeah.
straight out of a horror movie, the way
Well,
that was shot.
right before that, Kevin Costner pretends to have a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he let's just say we forgot to say this. Terrence Mann, played by James Earl Jones,
Yeah.
gives the absolute best monologue. Made me cry. It's the best monologue that's ever been filmed. Probably not. I don't know, but I think
It's a good one.
Or he's like the constant is baseball. He's got that James Earl Jones voice. It's
Yeah.
like no matter how many times throughout history, but they will come. Right? People will line up down the street, and
Oh, yeah.
you'll charge them $20. You can relive your childhood. Yeah, it's so great. He's like reading a
awesome.
baseball almanac like a fucking
You can even
insane
do
person.
you could even do price gouging if you want. Hey.
He's like,
Yeah.
this will save the farm, right? Like, yeah. And then, I did want to say too, like, we kind of discussed this on the failed recording, but like, So Travis, you kind of said that he's got like earlier. You said he's got like unwavering, like this is going to happen, like faith, and he's got
Mhm.
that burning, and he has faith throughout. But the one time he loses faith is or he kind of doubts the whole thing is, he's like, yeah, let's do it, and then they ask man to go into the cornfield, and
Mhm.
Ray is like, what the hell? Like, I did this entire thing. I built this entire thing. Why can't I go?
What's
Right?
in it
Like,
for me?
what's in it for me? Yeah. And then, Shoeless Joe's like, you don't want to, you don't want to come in here with us if that's what you still think. Right. Because I think it's
Mhm.
like, you would go to hell, like
Yeah.
Terrence
Yeah,
Mann's
if
going
you're
to
still
heaven.
holding on to that part of America and you more than the communal aspect of it, then you need to stay here with the field and figure it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, purgatory. Like I said, uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if Shoeless Joe's in hell, but like I think he's like in another part of purgatory. Because if he's coming back to purgatory, like
They're
I don't.
they're all they're all in purgatory because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I think
yeah,
the
yeah.
I think
because
the Greek
to
underworld is a better framework to understand this movie in.
Mm.
yeah, that's probably I would agree with that, Travis. Yeah, it's like they're all kind of like in this middle space where
Like
they
Elysian
have these
fields.
regrets. Yeah, and then eventually like they kind of all like because Archie Graham, he has everything. Well, his thing is that he has the regret that like if um his regret is like he wanted to play one, he wanted to stare down a pitcher, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I just wanted to stare down a pitcher and wink at him and let him know I know it's coming and like, hit a triple essentially was his
Yeah.
goal. And he learns like in the movie that that's not actually his goal. Like he realizes that his work as a doctor was way more important than him playing baseball, but he got to do it, right? So like his regret was kind of done. And that's when he's able to walk into the cornfield and leave, And
Like
so
he had he had a better purpose.
yeah, so everybody in the movie has to realize like their purpose before they can go into the corn, right? Terrence Mann, he gives the big speech about baseball. He kind of like
He goes back to
realized,
his writing.
yeah, and so he he's able to pass on, and like everyone in the movie kind of is able to pass on at a certain point.
Because Terrence Mann is like, he talks about not writing anymore, and then the last thing he says before in the corn is like, "What else am I gonna? I'm a writer. What else am I gonna do?"
Yeah,
And that's classic like storytelling. Like you have a flawed protagonist in order to, successfully complete the third act. If it's a tragedy, they're not gonna learn their lesson and they're gonna die. But in a happy movie, they learn their lesson and everything ends happily, and that's what we get here.
Yeah.
yeah, great movie though.
Good move. Yeah, liked it.
Like I said, deeply personal film, 5 stars. But yeah, do you guys want to get to the second movie?
Yeah, why don't we move on?
Yeah, let me do the break real quick just so I make sure we have this. Welcome everybody. Of course. All right, so
Welcome everybody.
welcome back, everybody. So yeah, let's get into it. Our second movie, Bull Durham, 1988. Matt, as you said, this similarly. I mean, it's a baseball movie with Kevin Costner, obviously, but similar themes when it comes to like dreams deferred, dreams unrealized. A similar spiritual element. Straight up, I'll be upfront. I gave this movie 5 stars. I fucking loved it. Maybe I was so desperate to see a comedy that I haven't seen before, but like. Maybe I'm biased, but yeah, this movie was like right up my alley. I fucking loved it. I thought it was like I said, I thought it was really funny. I thought Tim Robbins was like amazing.
Oh yeah.
Just like great vibes, like really funny. I thought, symbolically, I thought it was very much a story of like, aligning your mind, body, and soul. Like you can see Tim Robbins as the body, he's the talent. you can debate on who's the mind or the soul. You know, Kevin Costner has that great monologue where he says what I am, and I feel like that like makes him so distinct from Tim Robbins' character Nuke. And you know, ostensibly, I guess Susan Sarandon is the protagonist, and she's kind of like choosing between, you know, two different uh ways of the world. But yeah. Tell me more about it, Matt.
Yeah, so I gave this movie. I would give this movie a 5. So, if Field of Dreams is my second favorite baseball movie, this is my third favorite baseball movie. It's the
What's
Moneyball.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So
Philip Seymour
So
Hoffman, shout out.
yeah, so I think like the reason Moneyball is, just real quick, is I think it transcends baseball and just is like a great movie. Like I think people who don't like baseball love that movie. You know.
Yeah.
So which is incredible. But yeah, so this one's great. It's funny. Like I said, it's the second pick because it's not only is it spiritual, but it's a sobering look at the realities of the business of baseball. It's about it's so the team is real, right? The Durham Bulls. It's it's a minor league team in North Carolina. Obviously, all the characters are fake. You know, there's no real characters. This one's got more quotes that I like than Field of Dreams.
So many good quotes, dude.
there's a
So
lot
many
of good
good
one-liners in this one.
Yeah.
So Kevin Costner's great monologue where he's like, "Who am I?" He says something that I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude." He's like, "I believe that." I believe that the designated hitter, like, there should be no designated hitter in the
Yeah.
Constitution.
I actually wanted to ask about like that speech specifically. Trav, I want to get your thoughts, but real quick, the only part of that speech that I disagreed with him on was the whole thing about Oswald acting alone. Like,
Yeah, for sure. And
I mean,
what's hilarious is he's in
yeah,
JFK.
yeah,
Costner's
of
in
course.
JFK.
Yeah, Trav, what'd you think?
Yeah, that part where Crash Davis says jet fuel can't melt steel beams, I found kind of weird.
Yeah, I was
But other
prescient.
than that, no, this is a very fun movie. I'd always heard of this movie since I was a kid. I might have seen it when I was really young. I can't remember, but I really watched it with a blank slate this time. Didn't know Tim Robbins was going to be in it. He's always so fun to watch, and especially when he's so young and playing such a space head, meathead, probably a more fitting term. Really, really fun movie. Susan Sarandon was an absolute treasure on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just another great one for me. I think let's get
star
into we
ranking?
can get into some more specifics, but
What was your star ranking, Travis, on this one?
I didn't give this one a star ranking, but I'd give this one a 4.5 probably.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. So you guys liked.
I'm very very stingy with 5 stars.
That's fair.
You should
You guys like this one, I think, more than Field of Dreams. I love this movie. It's the only one of our, well, it's not the only one of our movies that we've covered, but it's like, it's funny that this one's on Criterion, is all I was gonna say. It's on the Criterion
Yeah.
Collection, Criterion channel. You can watch this movie. Yeah, but oh my god, the quotes, dude. Like I agree with you. Steven, the Costner monologue's great, except for I believe Oswald acted alone.
Yeah.
He says something
The
like the novels of the writing of Susan Sontag is pretentious garbage, and then she's
yeah.
like, and then she's so dumbfounded. She goes, "I like Sontag."
Yeah. Oh man, that was really funny. Yeah. This is like a very like it's got Susan Sarandon. We should say Susan Sarandon allegedly a big pot smoker. Allegedly one of the tribe, loves younger guys, loves Bernie. She's the perfect woman. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome, super attractive, super intelligent. In the movie, she's very intelligent. She's like, I've tried all the major religions, but I believe in the Church of Baseball. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I love that line.
Oh, what I wanted to say was all of the meeting at the mound scenes where like there's one in particular where it's like
Oh,
he meet
the one
the
towards the end is so good.
I know
yeah
exactly what you guys are thinking. Which one?
but there's the one at the midpoint that's really long where it's like where he tells him that he like told the he pisses him off and so
Oh, where
Kevin Costner.
he's throwing off the signs.
Yeah, and he tells the batter what the pitch is gonna be, and then he goes back and tells him, and he's like, he says something. He's like, "Man, something that travels that far ought to have a stewardess on it, don't you think?"
Yes.
Classic.
Yeah, I love the one too where he hits the ball. He's like, yeah, it's a fastball coming. He hits it, and he goes, "Damn, would you look at how far he knocked that thing?" He goes, "He hit the damn bull." He's like, "That guy's gonna get a free steak. I wonder how far
Fucking
that one
amazing,
traveled."
dude.
Yeah, it's great. He's like, you told him, and then like in this the one that you were talking about, he's like, you told him what I was going to throw. Right? He goes, "Yep." But also, I like it too because he sticks up for him too. You know, because he's like, yeah, he's throwing a fastball and he hits it and he's like staring. He goes, "What are you doing showing up my pitcher? I gave
Yeah,
you a gift and you're just going to stand there, run, you need run."
I think that's like masterful filmmaking. That whole sequence.
Yeah, and he's great. You know, Crash Davis, right? He's a guy who's brought he's in the organization, right? He's played in the show, right, which is the big leagues MLB. He wasn't quite good enough. Like he was good, right, in the show, but they said like he wasn't, you know, he's not a superstar, so he can't be in the show. They bring him down from AAA. I think I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Double A
I
is
think
where
they say single A at some point,
it,
don't they?
it, yeah, I just don't remember if this is the Double A team
For sure.
or if the Single A team is the one that he plays in at the end to hit his career high. The he
It's
you know he
247
breaks the
home
record
run.
of the most home runs in the minors, which I love that she's just like no sports news ever wrote about that because like yeah who would like why would
Yeah.
you write about that but yeah it's a great movie. Like I said, the quotes, it's like eminently quotable. Susan Sarandon's character is great. You know, she picks one player. The whole premise of the movie, she picks one player to sleep with, and his stats go up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like,
Mhm.
and I do this like selflessly, kind of. She has a companion for the season.
She ferries minor leaguers to the show.
Yeah, basically. And so,
Her
yeah, she picks the hot-headed pitcher played by Tim Robbins, right? And Crash comes down. They bring him down to either double or single A to train up, right, to make him a big league pitcher,
Yeah.
essentially. So him and Sarandon are kind of like his two mentors, guiding him to the show.
Nuke, who by the way fucks like he pitches. Another great
Yeah, according to
all over the
Millie.
one-liner.
place.
According to Millie, which is also she's a great character. She's like, my daddy donated the scoreboard. She has sex with all the baseball players except for the at the
Christian.
end, which is great. Yeah, the Christian guy, he marries her, and they're all talking. They're like, "Oh, did you tell like him about her?" And then Crash is like, "Hey, don't anyone badmouth Millie, right?" Like
Yeah,
I like that a lot. It shows his character,
that was very sweet.
Yeah, so my favorite lines I did two quotes besides talking about the besides his monologue. Um, he tells Nuke, he says strikeouts are boring. Besides that, they're fascist. Throw some balls, it's more democratic,
I love that. Yeah.
which is great. And then he tells him at the end, he says the world was made for people with no self awareness, which I was like, damn, I feel that.
Yeah.
Because Crash is like he's like God literally sent you down like a lightning arm and gave you all this God given talent, and you're so stupid you're squandering it away, and you don't even know that you're squandering it away. And he's upset because he's like I was born like I was made self aware. I realized that I'm a good enough ball player to be a tradesman at it, but not a good enough ball player to make it in the show.
Yeah. Yeah,
Might be a
no,
good
he's
manager.
a tragic character in that regard. I think when the end, he's called into when Crash is called into the office and he says it's the hardest part of any manager's job, yada yada. Organization wants to change. Basically, you're released.
Mhm.
I think when he says, there might be a manager, or I put good word in with the organization that you'd make a good manager down the road. I think
Yeah.
that's a consolation. I don't really see at the end of the movie Crash pursuing. He says he's going to go check out coaching jobs. I think he's done with baseball, in my opinion.
I have a little pushback on that. I think he slightly disagrees because Sarandon, he's like, "Do you think I could make it to the show as a manager?" And she starts crying and she says, "I think you'd be great." I think he will be a manager, just because he knows about baseball and he loves it, right? Like it's his. So a lot of like
Sure.
failed players, they'll become managers, or people who are just too old to play,
Yeah.
will become managers. But yeah, it's a great movie. There's a lot of great lines in it. It's really
Um,
funny. The
I,
mound visits are
the
incredible.
the
Yeah, it's,
announcer, the announcer for the game sounds. This is a wrestling reference, so you probably guys might not get it, but he sounds like Dusty Rhodes, who is like this old wrestler. The guy who's like, oh, we got 2 hours, two down dead at the third inning, daddy. We about to get him. Oh yeah, like this like weird Southern accent.
He's a good old boy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's super funny. Like I said, yeah, Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon go left his couple. And also like I like the idea of minor league baseball in theory, like because like I said, like baseball has the most relatable guys because like you could theoretically look like David Wells and pitch a no hitter. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
that's very powerful. Whereas like with like I'm a huge basketball fan, but like they're like gods to me, more than people. It's like the difference between DC and Marvel, right? Like basketball is DC. It's all about gods and goddesses, right? Whereas
Yeah.
baseball is Marvel because it's about real people. It's about Spider-Man. It's about a nerd who, can't satisfy his girlfriend and like have a career and deal with the Green Goblin at the same time. That's baseball to me.
Well,
I mean,
I think, yeah. Go ahead, Travis.
I was gonna say I grew up in a town where our biggest, or we had some basketball, but we had a good AAA semi-pro baseball team, or
Hmm.
minor league, I should say, not the same thing. Um, Good AAA team, and it was always fun. We'd watch the River Cats play, and then sometimes we go see the Giants. They'd be bringing a guy up from the River Cats. He'd be either
Mm.
play really well, really bad, and then we go see the River Cats a couple weeks later. That guy might be back on the roster. You kind of follow these players being brought up and down. So it was fun to see guys, try out the show, see if they have a really good debut, really bad. So it's kind of fun to see this story behind the scenes of what goes on in the locker room, the
Yeah.
relationships between players, and the sort of training and camaraderie there.
I love the I love the coaches too. Like the coach that was a player who was a pitcher, and he's like,
Oh
because
yeah.
Crasher's like, yeah, I hit a bomb off of you or whatever, right?
Played
I like that
played
guy a
by
lot.
the
He is for
played by
sure
the
like
great played
good.
by the great Robert Wool from Batman 1989.
Yeah,
That's where he's
yeah.
from. Also Arliss. He played Arliss on an HBO show called Arliss. He was like a sports
Never
agent.
seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
he's old school baseball. I love it. He's like, come on, yeah, no problem, Crash, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, but he's like,
Yeah.
chewing on tobacco or whatever, spitting sunflower seeds out all the time. He's like, come on, Crash, no, yeah, don't shake it off, Crash, come on, like
Yeah.
clapping and
Yeah,
doing the
his
old.
dugout yelling is great.
Yeah, he's the perfect dugout yeller actor, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
like I said, Robert Wool. Like, if you like his sports work, he was in an HBO show back in the day called Arliss, and it's like he plays a sports agent, and it was kind of like it was like a punchline for a long time. Like a lot of sitcoms would be like, "Oh, what are you doing watching Arliss?" But it was a good show, and just wanted to shout out Robert Wool.
I like the scene in the bath, like when they're all taking showers and stuff, and he's like, well, they're kids, scare them, and he comes in, he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
y'all
that's
are
such
a
a great
bunch
scene.
of sissies coming around here and flaunting it. Well, he's like, you guys like me?
Lollygagging.
Lollygaggers. Yeah, he's like, what would you call that? Well, whatever the guy's name is, like Steve. He's like, lollygaggers. Yeah, they're lollygag.
Lollygaggers. Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah, it sucks also because like that one guy gets released because he's like can't hit for shit that
Mhm.
season, and that's true. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like the sobering like. There's a lot of like Susan Sarandon kind of talked about like the magic of baseball and everything, but there's sobering elements, like, they're people. They're going to have slumps, and some people aren't good enough to be baseball players. I mean, in that scene where Crash is in the bar, he's like, who this guy is? And
Yeah.
he doesn't. He's like, this guy's a fucking amazing baseball player, and no one knows who he is because he just toiled in the minor leagues, which is what happens apparently. Like it's a more common because you're watching MLB and you see these guys, right, and they can kind of struggle, and some of them are good and some of them are bad, whatever. But like the amount of players who are in the minor leagues making like less money than they would do like literally anything else, just playing baseball, and there's no safety net there. They're just playing this sport and to the best of their ability, but they're even if they're legends on the minor league
They're
field,
making pennies on the dollar.
yeah, even if they're legends, they're not going to, it doesn't necessarily equate to them being the most successful because, there's some guys who are like, oh yeah, like this guy's just a really good player, but he's not, he doesn't fit in with the organization. Like we don't need another shortstop, like we've already got 3 shortstops. And so this guy will just toil in the minor league system forever. And, it's sad. It's very sad, but it's a bittersweet thing. I think, I once the film ends, right? Like, I think that at least in my opinion, Crash does become a manager, and he has got a good shot of making it to the show as a manager.
Yeah, and also, speaking of the bar scene, I love that Costner carries around a baseball with him wherever he goes. Apparently, he just like busts one out. And he's like, "Here, throw this." He's like, "What the fuck are you just carrying around a baseball everywhere you go?" Also, what's up?
Yeah, just has a baseball just in his inner pocket of his jacket.
Yeah. Like, which is, I also want to say, dope ass bomber jacket, by the way.
Yeah.
Very cool bomber jacket.
He reads
I love
books
this.
without
What's
pictures
up?
in them. He reads books without pictures in them.
Oh yeah. I love the scene where they sneak onto the field because, like, if you notice, like every player has his own 6-pack, and like that's really the way to do it. Like if you're hanging out with friends, everyone gets their own sixer.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, baseball seems so cool. Like, I say that because, like, in theory it sounds cool, but then, like, I worked with this guy who was on a minor league baseball team, and he was just kind of a douchebag. And
pro athletes, man. That's all. I always, yeah.
well, he would like leave work for like 8 hours at a time, and people would just like cover for him because he would be at baseball practice. I mean, I don't care, but because I would, like skip work all you want. I don't give a shit. But he was like, other than that, he was just like, he liked Drake a lot. I don't know. I didn't really fuck with him.
One of those guys.
And what's funny though is like you think about baseball players, right? And you think about minor leaguers, and one of my buddies was telling me that his church like had a softball league, and he played on the softball league at his church, and they signed up for a tournament, and it was like a last minute tournament that they for them to play any games against any other teams that kind of were like last minute slotted in, and these softball tournaments are also like a weird thing where ex minor league players like who couldn't even make it in the minors will go and play for these teams where they'll get sponsor deals, right? Like like Gatorade or whatever will sponsor these teams to go and play in these tournaments, and these teams are like these washed up baseball players that will come in, according to my buddy, drunk as shit, like absolutely pissed. Like they'll drink like a 12-pack before going on the field, and he's like, and the difference in level is insane because you think like, oh, minor leaguers, right? They're not major. They couldn't even make it in the minor leagues. He's like, and you play against them, and he said they can put the ball anywhere they want. He's like, they're so fast and so strong, and he's like, you can't score against them. Like they're just like up like in the second inning, they're up fucking 12-0 because they're just hitting fucking home runs constantly.
Well, that's one thing I noticed about Bull Durham was, I mean, the movie I think shot baseball a lot better than, I mean, it shot more baseball than Field of Dreams did, but I think the actual movie was a little bit more faithful to the game itself. there was more baseball played in it.
Mhm.
But yeah, just on what you were saying, Matt, when Nuke first gets on the diamond, he's throwing all over the place. He's got the power, but he can't aim for shit. This guy never would have made the team if he was actually pitching like that. They over exaggerated inaccurate his pitches were. I mean, he never would have been brought on the mound as a starting pitcher with that arm.
Well, they bring him up, right? So he gets signed. I'm pretty sure he gets signed out of like, high school or college. But the
Yeah,
funny thing about it is that like this is so funny to me. Like I don't know why. Like this is really hard to do, but they're like he's got a cannon on him. He can throw 95 miles per hour, right? Which is like
Mhm.
not.
like you
It's
should be able
fast,
to.
but it's like a fastball. Like literally every pitcher now has to throw over 95 miles per hour. Like in
Yeah,
1980, in 1988, it's like, wow, this guy can throw 95 miles per hour. It's like, yeah, these guys are throwing like 101s now, like, yeah, but so you don't see the strikes. So he can apparently throw. So he sets a new team record in both uh, walks and strikes.
Mhm.
So, but you don't see that when you see him pitch. He's like comically inaccurate.
Yeah. Well, he also
Um,
said that in that game he hit like eight things that were like in the stands or something. 8 concessions. I forget what it was.
it was like they hit 8 home runs off of him, but also like something like that. Eight people got hit in the stands, and then it was like but he struck out like more than that. So it's like he's good enough to where he's like their best pitcher, but also like their worst pitcher at the same time.
Yeah. Wait, here it is. Yeah, he walked 18, struck out 18. He hit the sports writer, the public address announcer, the bull mascot twice. All new league records.
Yeah,
Uh,
which
I
is
want
great.
I want to say if you guys like this movie, there's a documentary from 2014. It's on Netflix. It's called The Battered Bastards of Baseball. It's about this independent team. Like they're the Portland Mavericks. They were owned by Kurt Russell's father, and I believe the movie is narrated by Kurt Russell. Um, but yeah, it's about this like independent baseball team who like they weren't in the majors, but they would like go play all kinds of people. It's really good. It's really good if you like that like whole like minor league vibe and shit.
Cool.
Uh, and Kurt Russell. But yeah, final thoughts.
Final thoughts for me. Yeah, it's great. I'm glad I could introduce you guys to this movie. Like I said, I'm a big baseball fan, so these are two very personal movies for me. I believe that baseball is the most cinematic sport. Boxing is also cinematic, but I believe baseball is film better. It's very contemplative. That's why I like baseball. There's a lot of time for thinking. It's a slower sport. Um, Someone called it the writer's game, which I think is pretty telling, right? Because it's a lot of great pieces have been written about baseball. Some of the older sports, it's got a lot of history. Yeah, and these two movies both, like Susan Sarandon's character in this one, very spiritual, believes in baseball, thinks that baseball, like her entire like being, she's a fan of like Walt Whitman and philosophy and she teaches English. She's a professor, an adjunct professor at the college. She
Yeah,
teaches comp and literature. She's part time because she wants to go to the baseball games, right? And she's very contemplative and she loves the sport. She loves the hero making that the sport happens, and that's something that I think both of these movies, to finish out my long tirade, both of these movies do extremely well, which is taking the spiritual aspect of baseball that I've always kind of like felt, just watching baseball myself, and then putting it on screen in a filmic language that people can understand. So yeah, two
Hmm.
great movies.
Trav, what about you?
Yeah, before watching these two movies, I would have said on my own time I'd never watch a baseball movie. It doesn't appeal to me for some reason. I grew up watching baseball, but it's always been one of those sports that's the least accessible. I feel like there's such a history, there's such a nuance to the game that I can't just watch it for athleticism like I can any other sport. It's such a technicality. So I went into this like, oh, baseball movies.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved both. I am a fan of baseball, but not a diehard. Absolutely loved these movies. Kevin Costner surprised me as an actor that I actually enjoyed watching in both of them. I thought he was compelling. He played two very different characters.
Yeah, he was
The
great.
rest of the
He
cast,
really impressed me.
yeah, no, I mean he was really awesome. The rest of the cast were amazing. Ray Liotta's eyes in that first scene that he's in Field of Dreams. Whew.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I absolutely loved both of these. I'm gonna recommend Bull Durham to friends who haven't seen it.
Yeah, and like I said, it's based on a novel. I'd like to read it. My final thoughts, like I said, it's brilliant. Like talking about like triangles in films, it's like the perfect like love triangle, I guess. Yeah, because it's like two guys that ostensibly get along and are like helping each other, but like they're still fighting over the same woman. It's just a great movie about guys, like guys being guys, literally. Like like guys being dudes. Like this really is what like men are like. Like you can literally like fight over the same woman, punch a guy, talk shit about him, and then the next morning still be okay. Like because like they go through all that shit at the very end, and then even with all that, like before Nuke leaves town, Kevin Costner catches up with him and make sure that they're all good before he leaves. He like settles the score or whatever. Tim Robbins, like they all they all come together in the end. Yeah, it was really beautiful, I
Yeah,
thought.
and
And
that final quote by Nuke where he says, "An old friend told me," and he quotes both the coach and Crash. He says, it's a game where you throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball. Sometimes it's good, or sometimes blah blah. Sometimes it rains,
mhm.
and then he ends with that beautiful. Think about that for a while. I think
Yeah,
that's just it's such a beautiful. It's a little bit tongue in cheek. He's being his same spacehead goofball guy, but
yeah.
it's such a great ending to the movie.
And I love like his parting advice, which is like, at the end of the day, it's all about arrogance and fear.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like that's a really good way to look at life in general. It's like equal mix of like arrogance and fear. But yeah, great movie. Uh, Kevin Costner. I'll have to do a deep dive and watch all the Costner movies I haven't seen, which is
Oh, you
actually
gotta
a
watch
lot.
Tin Cup.
Yeah, I gotta watch Tin Cup. I gotta watch. Have never seen Dances with Wolves.
You don't have to watch any other Kevin Costner movie besides Yellowstone, the TV show.
Oh, Yellowstone is good. I want to see though. I want to see the Sam Raimi baseball one because it has
For the
John
love of
C.
the game.
Riley.
Yeah, so for the love of the this double feature, just like again, like I said final thoughts, but I was a liar. This double feature was going to be, if you hadn't seen it, it was definitely going to be Moneyball. But I like the spirituality in it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, if you wanted to do another double feature, you could do For the Love of the Game. But For the Love of the Game is not spiritual. It's not about, it's definitely not about like he has a major league picture. It's a love
Mm.
story. It's more of a love story than a baseball movie, honestly.
I thought these were both great picks.
Sweet. Yeah. Speaking of great picks, with that said, Travis, the whole reason we had you on the show, not the whole reason, but part of the reason, you're next week's special guest as well. You're going to be here and you're picking the movies for next week. So we wanted to have you on. We love having people on just to like talk about our movies and our picks and but we also want to get people in there to pick stuff for us and show us stuff. And you had mentioned like you had something up your sleeve or whatever. And like I said, we're super stoked. We wanted to have you on. We wanted to have you like here to like present your movies for next week. And I'm super stoked to see what you have. So Travis, what are the movies for next week?
Yeah, so I made a little last minute adjustment to my double feature here. Stebbs, I think you've probably seen both of these. I don't know if together, but Matt, these should be good for you. They are in any order: Apocalypse Now and Aguirre: The Wrath of God by Herzog.
Let's fucking go, dude.
So yeah, so initially
Yeah.
instead of Apocalypse Now, what I had watched last year just by chance, and it ended up being a very very fitting double feature was Harvey Keitel, Bad Lieutenant, and then Aguirre. But
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah.
a little bit better aesthetic connection. You still get that same megalomania, Apocalypse Now, and Aguirre.
Sweet, man. I'm super stoked. Like Apocalypse Now. I mean, both of those are sort of riffs on Heart of Darkness. Like that's like a favorite type of genre. Like that's like a favorite genre movie. Like movies that are like based on that story. Like Searching to the Heart of the Jungle. Man, that's like I said. I also recently bought the special edition like Apocalypse Now 4K UHD disc. And I've been meaning, like, we also got a new TV, so I've been meaning to, like, bust it out and, like, pick the perfect night to watch it. This gives me the perfect excuse. Apocalypse Now is one of my favorite movies. It's amazing. I'm probably also gonna go back and watch the documentary Heart of Darkness,
Oh yeah.
which his wife made about the making of the movie. Yeah, and Aguirre, Wrath of God, Werner Herzog, the goat, man. He's the
Yeah, Herzog and Klaus Kinski together. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I met Herzog once. He's amazing. Matt, what do you think?
Perfect. I've never seen either of these movies. I've only heard good things about both of them. You know me, I have like weird gaps in
Oh yeah, we all
classic.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got. You can't see everything, but I have weird
there's
gaps in film stuff. So yeah, I've heard good things about both these movies. I'm excited, and I'll try and when I'm watching them, think about how they tie in as a double feature and everything thematically, I guess.
Are we
Travis,
watching the director's cut of Apocalypse Now?
I think I will.
Okay, yeah, me too.
I mean, at the end of the day, for this podcast, there'll be stuff to talk about, whatever version you watch. But I think that's the version I'll go for.
Okay, so director's cut, Apocalypse Now, Aguirre, The Wrath of God. Travis, you said either order's fine. We do like to kind of just keep it in like a certain order. So do you want to talk about Apocalypse Now first next week, or do you want to talk about Aguirre first next week?
Yeah, why don't we go Apocalypse Now first?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm excited, dude. I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen either of these. I've only heard good things about both of them. So,
And I'm just really excited to smoke weed and watch them all over again.
I'm so excited to watch Aguirre. I've been trying to find a reason to, but there's so much to watch, and I've been on a movie drought, and so I'm excited to finally have a reason to rewatch Aguirre.
Yeah, no, I was super because I know you were a Herzog guy, so that was a big reason why I was like excited to have you on because like I was like, oh man, I like was hoping you would pick a Herzog so we can get into him because he's just one of my favorite guys. Like, man, what a cool guy. And then you were talking about like Bad Lieutenant. He wasn't in the Harvey Keitel, but he was in the remake. Or
Yeah,
he did the remake.
He directed the remake. Yeah,
yeah, with Nick Cage.
Which is such a good movie as well.
Yeah, we love Nick Cage. I want to get Matt to watch Bad Lieutenant New Orleans one day too.
That should be a double feature. It's just both of the Bad Lieutenants.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, man, yeah, but yeah, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to watch. Like, yeah, I'm stoked to go back to Apocalypse Now because, like, I don't know. I've always thought it was like, it's like, man, it's like. It's a movie that I want to make. I want to I don't want to remake it, but I want to make my version of it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, Heart of Darkness is an endlessly adaptable story. It's in video games. It's in other books. It's in so many movies, TV. You can rewrite that story as many ways as there are words.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm stoked to get into it. With that said, thank you everyone for listening. I don't think we went 3 hours this week. We didn't break another record. But yeah, everyone, thank you for joining us, and see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
It's been a pleasure.